This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to How Will I Die, starring me, Nicholas Howe. Now, I know you're thinking, did I just hear that right? Is Nicholas a Michigan boy now? And yes, you did hear that right. I've joined the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Network, and honestly, it's a great group of people. There are plenty of shows on the network, such as Massive Late Fee, Super Media Bros, and many, many more. And a part of being a part of this network is that I get to work with some pretty cool people. But enough about that, and now to focus on what you really came here for, the deaths. Just before I start with those, I'm going to be doing this episode alone, and I'm also going to be doing 2 very short stories for you guys because school's kicking my ass right now. But I still wanted to get something to you guys before 3 weeks had passed. Also, at some point we're going to be switching over to a weekly show. I'm not quite sure when, but it is going to happen, I promise. So, before we get started with the actual stories, these multiverse versions of Nicholas are going to be a little bit different than the ones that we've met already, because rather than being a full alternate universe, these are going to be diverging timeline Nicholases. I know, it's a crazy process, but it's what we're living in right now. Well, we're living in the good timeline where I'm hosting this podcast, but, whatever, I guess. So when we're assigning names for these Nicholases, they have to get very specific names. So I've decided to go with Tripping Nick and Falling Nick, and you'll find out why in just a moment. They're both 24 in college, and they live on the 2nd floor of an apartment building, and I think that's all the relevant information y'all need. So let's jump into it. So Tripping Nicholas was walking out to his mailbox, but in order to get to the actual mailbox itself, he had to go through this small forest area, and the time of year that it is, which is February, there are tons of leaves and branches on the ground because the trees have been kind of trimmed, getting ready for the new season. Now, that presents a bunch of problems, not the least of which is there are tons of branches and twigs and sticks everywhere, and also a lot of things that are easily slippable on, as Nicholas found out, because as he was walking towards the mailbox, he tripped over a fallen branch and hit the ground really hard. Now, obviously that didn't kill him because I'm not that weak, I don't think. But what did happen was when he stood up, he felt this stabbing pain in his side. And the reason he felt stabbing pain is because he had a twig sticking out of him. He had to think to himself for a moment and be like, oh no. And as he went to reach for it, he was like, no, you can't do that. You can't pull it out. But it wasn't super affecting him. So he just decided to continue to go get his mail, which he did. And then he went back inside to his house. After about 10 to 15 minutes, he realized that maybe having a twig in him wasn't a great idea. Stick, that's the word. I couldn't remember the word stick just now. Imagine it's a stick, not a twig. Those are 2 different things, technically. So after about 10-15 minutes of having the stick in him, he decided to get his roommate to take him to the emergency room. When they got there, the doctors all started to be like, why didn't you come here immediately? You know how casually doctors say, why didn't you come here immediately? But Nicholas was like, I don't know, I just didn't want to, it was a bother, and I didn't want to be bothered with it. And after getting it checked, and while he was in an x-ray to see if they could pull it out safely, he bled out. Because, here's a fun fact, if you have a giant hole in you that's continuously leaking blood, you tend to die pretty quick. So that's Tripping Nicholas. Let's go over to Falling Nicholas. So Falling Nicholas was very late to class. It was about 10:52, and class starts at 11, and the walk from Falling Nicholas's apartment to the classroom is about 12 minutes. So he was already late. And as he decided to run down the stairs, which is why that 2nd floor apartment makes a lot more sense right now, he tripped and fell down the stairs. Hence the name Falling Nicholas. Although I did just say trip, so tomato, potato. So Nicholas is falling down these stairs, flipping over himself a few times. About 2.5, because when you're thinking about how stairs work and you measure it out in your mind, you get a number, and that number is about 2.5 times. hitting pretty much every part of his body against this set of stairs. His butt, his back, his head, his neck, all the fun stuff. And so as he hit the ground, he was thinking like, all right, time to go to class. And he tried to get up, and he couldn't. And then he watched as a nice little puddle pooled around him of his own blood because he had smashed his head in a little bit while falling down the stairs. Poor Nicholas. He had so much going for him, and he decided to fall down the stairs. Idiot. So, I know what you're thinking. Normally, Nicholas, when you tell stories, you tell things that happen to other people, and then you give the history about it. Well, today's worked a little bit differently, because while, yes, these happen to people all the time, these are things that happened in my mind to me the other day. The same day, actually. So sometimes, which is the reason that I started this podcast, my brain will be like, it'd be funny if you died this way right now. Which is apparently a common occurrence for people, which is fine. Or not, depending on who you ask. But my head was telling me these two situations, and so I decided to explore those a little bit. And what was happening at those times was, for tripping Nicholas, I was headed out to get my mail, and I kind of slipped a little bit, and my brain was like, what if you just fell right now, and then got impaled by a stick? And so what I decided in that moment was, I would just kind of live, I guess, and just kind of go about my business. And then my head reprimanded me and said, no, you should go to the doctor. And I was like, no, brain, why would I go to the doctor when I can have this cool stick in me? And then the second thing, because I do not care about my health and well-being apparently, was I was walking down the stairs because I was late to class. And in this class, whenever you're late, you have to do a performance of why you were late. So if you were late because you missed the bus, you have to perform that you missed the bus, and it's a whole thing. It's for communications class, fun fact. And so I was running down the stairs, and I slipped and I missed a step. I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to die. I didn't. I landed on the next step perfectly fine. But I was so convinced I was going to die in that moment that I wasn't going to worry about it. And then when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was like, if I had fallen down those stairs, I still could have made it to class. And if they had asked me to perform, that would have been a great way to do it. So that's why those stories came into my head, was because that's just how my brain works sometimes. And that's very sad. But like I said, I'm doing a shorter episode this week because I'm solo and because I don't want to bore you guys or do the same thing that I did with the first episode, which is the last one that I hosted alone. So I wanted to do a fun little one for you guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break, which I guess I'm going to call them commercials for right now until I can find a good word for them that I'm not stealing from another person. As I said at the beginning of the show, we are now a part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Network, which is a host to a bunch of really good shows. And I urge you to go check out the network and the wonderful shows on the network. But I also would like you to go follow the podcast network Twitter, which is at MSE Network. That's M as in Michigan, S as in sports, and E as in entertainment, and then the word network on Twitter. You can also check out the website, which is michigansportsandentertainment.com, where they've got news articles, various types of sports stuff, and a bunch of other awesome things, including a merch store. Since this is a shorter episode this week, we are going to do one plug that is not a podcast or anything like that, or the network, because I really want people to check them out. So this plug is for the musical comedy duo called Two Tree Hill. It gets its namesake from the hit television show One Tree Hill because it was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is where the band is based. They do a bunch of really funny comedy songs. They kind of work the same way as Flight of the Conchords, but personally I think their stuff is just really good. It's sung by Ryan and JD, and I love listening to them. I would definitely check out their second track on their first album, which is called I Miss You. So you can go ahead and check them out at twotreehill.bandcamp.com and definitely support them if you can. They're really good guys and I want to see them succeed. And lastly, just a quick shout out for someone who left a review on the iTunes page. Thank you, Roorty-Man. You're the best, even though I can't pronounce your name on the iTunes. Sorry about that, but I appreciate it. Thanks. And speaking of reviews and such, I have a select amount of stickers right now with the How Will I Die logo, and I'm going to be giving those out to the first few people who ask honestly. If you're looking for a sticker, just go ahead and tweet at me at HWIDIEPOD and I'll get one sent to you. So then, what is the likelihood of those two deaths occurring? For tripping Nick, I think that is much less likely because, as I noted in the story, he just kept bleeding and none of the doctors or anyone really, helped him or anything. So that's a problem in and of itself. So I assumed that wouldn't take place in real life like I imagine it does in my brain. However, for falling Nick, that's a different story because it's so possible for me. So if I'm going to give these ratings, I'm going to give tripping Nick probably a let's go with a 5 out of 10. Middle ground's there. For falling Nick, let's go ahead and say 9 out of 10. Extremely likely to happen in my time. This week's Spam Slam comes to you from not the internet and email, but rather from cellular data, because this one came in on my phone. So sometimes I'll get emails and text messages from spam numbers and such, and every once in a while I will respond for 1 or 2 messages and just see what they have to say. So this one obviously doesn't come with a name, so we're going to give it a name of Casey. Sure. So Casey writes, "Hello, how are you? ... Are you interested in a job that is going to offer you $300 a week? If you interested, get back to me for more detail. Found your contact on your school directory." So I wrote back, "I'm very interested in a real job that pays $300 a week." To which Casey replied, "This job is flexible, so you can do it whenever you are provided that there is a post office in the area. In addition to that, I don't mind you doing all the tasks during your spare time outside of work or school. I wish I could meet up with you to talk about the job in person, but am currently away on business. All errands will be in your city town, so it is not a must that you have a car for the job. You can go places by bus or taxi. When you get my mail packages, you are required to mail them to where I want them to mailed to. You won't have to put money out of your pocket. That's all you have to do. You are allowed to open the packages to reveal the content. The content of the packages will be business and personal mails. ? So I stopped replying at that point pretty immediately because I was bored with it. But I'll give you another one real quick just because it takes 2 seconds. "Hello, I contacted your school admin." Sorry, this is from Jones or Annie, one of those 2 names. "Hello, I contacted your school admin at University blah 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 blah. I graduated from there. I explained that I was looking for an administrative personal assistant, and your contact was sent to me. They said you are an honest person. This job is flexible, so you can perform the tasks during spare time outside of school, and the position is extremely rewarding. Get back to me ASAP via my email link at gmail.com if you're interested. Regards, Jones." What's funny to me about both of these is that they both mention that I go to a college, which is pretty normal since my phone number is out on the internet already. The second one worries me a little bit more because it specifically name drops my college. But if you're like me, you know how to look for specific information on people without even needing to know the actual school that people go to. So I just found that pretty funny. So Casey and Jones or Annie, whatever your name is, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to pass up these opportunities because I just can't trust you. You got my darn phone number from people. And Casey, I don't even know if you know where I live. So sorry, bud. That's going to do it for us here at How Will I Die. featuring me, Nicholas Howe. Make sure to give us a follow on Twitter, and also, if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate some reviews on iTunes or SoundCloud. And don't forget that I am trying to give out some stickers, so if you're looking for some of that new good merch that you can't get literally anywhere else, go ahead and let me know, and I will get that in the physical mail to you. And I feel like today's episode represents exactly what I mean when I say, why worry about the inevitable? Focus on the possibilities.